This statement is prepared by Solidarity for Peace and Reunification of Korea, entitled Permanent Peace on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia through the Abolition of Extended Deterrence and Dismantling of Alliances. At this very moment, nuclear confrontations on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia are even more intensifying. Regional countries are engaging in unprecedented nuclear confrontations by strengthening extended deterrence and nuclear alliances, adopting the highly aggressive doctrine of preemptive nuclear strikes, enhancing nuclear forces, and deploying tactical nuclear weapons in the field. In 2023, the ROK and the US established the Nuclear Consultative Group, and in 2024, they formulated the guidelines for nuclear deterrence and nuclear operations on the Korean Peninsula. These guidelines focus on increasing the frequency and intensity of deployment of U.S. strategic assets on the Korean Peninsula, while also integrating the U.S. nuclear forces and South Korea's advanced conventional forces through Conventional Nuclear Integration, CNI. This is a strengthening of extended deterrence at the policy and strategic level. Accordingly, South Korea and the U.S. established Operational Plan 5022. This plan, the up-plan of the Indo-Pacific led by conventional forces, is based on preemptive strikes against North Korea. Additionally, the U.S. Strategic Command's up-plan 8010-12, led by nuclear forces, is being implemented. This plan is also based on preemptive strike against North Korea. With implementation of aforementioned guidelines and CNI, it is more likely that Up-Plan 5022 will be linked with an Up-Plan 8010-12 and operate as a subsystem of it, thereby increasing the likelihood that the deterrence and operations against North Korea will be carried out with the nuclear forces. The U.S. developed low-yield nuclear warheads of 5 to 7 kilotons during the first Trump administration and operationally deployed them on the nuclear submarines in 2019. In 2022, the DPRK revised its law on the DPRK's nuclear forces policy, shifting from a second strike to first strike. This is a countermeasure to the establishment of Indo-Pacific Command's Up-Plan, which professes preemptive attack. The DPRK has also developed tactical nuclear weapons mounted on the delivery systems. The revised nuclear law stipulates that nuclear weapons can be used in case an attack by nuclear weapons or other weapons of mass destruction was launched or imminent is judged. Article 6 and Paragraph 1. The DPRK is expected to launch anticipatory strikes against U.S. forces at sea and on land using either unmanned underwater attack vehicles or short-range ballistic missiles with evasive maneuver. Strengthening mutual deterrence between the DPRK and the U.S. is an inevitable product of strengthening alliances. In 2023, the leaders of South Korea, the U.S., Japan established a de facto trilateral military alliance at the Camp David summit and pledged to strengthen extended deterrence against North Korea, as part of which they adopt 2024 ROK-US and US-Japan nuclear deterrence guidelines. The US and Japan have also formulated a joint operational plan focused on the mobilization of US forces in Japan and South Korea with the aim of intervening in a cross-strait conflict. Furthermore, they seek to involve not only Japan's self-defense forces, but also ROK armed forces in this conflict. In response to this, in 2024, the DPRK and Russia restored their alliance by signing a Russia-DPRK Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Treaty. Article 4, military assistance during wartime. Article 8, strengthening defense capabilities during peacetime. Of this treaty imply the possibility of Russia providing extended deterrence to North Korea. The second Trump administration's interim national defense strategic guidance designates China as a U.S.'s sole-facing threat and prioritizes preventing Chinese seizure of Taiwan, thereby exacerbating nuclear confrontations on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia. Moreover, the guidance foists the burden of deterrence and defense against Russia, North Korea, and Iran onto the regional allies and nations, pressuring these countries to increase defense spending and military buildup. This, in turn, is fueling global and regional arms races and encouraging nuclear armament in countries like South Korea, Taiwan, and Iran. As a result, a new Cold War system centered around the U.S.-China rivalry as a zero-sum game is inevitable. In particular, if the Golden Dome for America, promoted by the second Trump administration, is established, the nuclear balance will dramatically tilt in favor of the U.S., leading to a nuclear confrontation surpassing that of a Cold War era, propelling humanity a giant stride closer to a nuclear Armageddon that could hasten humanity's annihilation. Extended deterrence, the threat through force, an anticipatory or preemptive attack shatter peace in peacetime and are bound to bring crises and wars. It goes without saying that no nuclear war would utterly annihilate humanity's lives, their objects, and nature. Therefore, the international community must urgently abolish the doctrine of extended deterrence and anticipatory or preemptive attacks and dismantle military alliances that adopt these illegal doctrines. The only way to prevent war and permanently establish peace on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia are to conclude a peace agreement on the Korean Peninsula, to legally and institutionally end the Korean War, realize the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula by guaranteeing the safety of the North regime and its security through the conclusion of North and U.S. non-aggression treaty, and based on this, replace the extended deterrence and military alliances with a regional common security framework for Northeast Asia. Thank you.